Liberal Viewer presents.
So, welcome to the November 18th edition of Liberal Viewer Monday Media Mixup. Thanks for joining me and Chong, who doesn't seem happy to be here, so I'll put him down. But I'll be using the 14 best, most newsworthy clips I picked out from the Sunday morning news analysis shows from the big five corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called corporate media here in the United States, for what should be really educational, informative, fair use media criticism and political commentary show for you all today. As you can see from the video title, my main topic is Trump nominates Beavis and Butthead to his cabinet of Kakistocracy. See, I was focusing so hard on saying Kakistocracy that I mispronounced cabinet. That's pretty funny. But I don't know if you know what Kakistocracy is. I always thought it meant government by caca, by shit or whatever, but I guess it means government by the worst. And based on the people who Trump is nominating to his cabinet, that's a tough word to say. Based on who Trump is nominating to his cabinet, he's looking to have a kakistocracy. And I'll talk about that a lot more as we go through the news summaries from all five of the big five corporate outlets and a bunch of newsmaker clips. Down in the video description, you can see short summaries of all 14 of the clips, including 3 political comedy clips I'm starting with, including a new political comedy show they're doing on CNN, and then on Saturday afternoon, evening, and then it streams on Max the next day. One of the people, it's with a couple comedians and then a couple guests, or actually there's 3 comedians, 2 guests every week. Roy Wood Jr. is the host, and he did a joke at the end that's kind of on one of my topics here. I had already decided on the title of the live stream before I saw this joke, but here's a clip of Roy Wood Jr. last Saturday over here.
Scientists create man who is somehow both Beavis and Butthead.
So yeah, scientists create man who is both Beavis and Butthead, and I actually like that show, and especially the show on Saturday they had on Tim Burchett, I think his name was, a Republican who actually made a couple funny jokes, and they sort of explored the bridge between the right and the left on the show. It was kind of it was worth watching anyway. I think like I said, I think it's streaming on Max, but I said I had 3 political comedy clips for you. And the second one, that first one, of course, is Matt Gaetz as scientists crossing Beavis and Butthead. But I think Pete Hegseth and Matt Gaetz in my thumbnail kind of look like Beavis and Butthead. Matt Gaetz nominated for Attorney General, Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense. So I wonder what he's going to think about their whole germ warfare program based on something he said back in February 2019 on Fox and Friends Sunday over here.
As I told you, my 2019 resolution is to say things on air that I say off air. I don't think I've washed my hands for 10 years. Really, I don't really wash my hands ever.
Help me!
No,
I
I inoculate myself. It's just not, germs are not a real thing. I can't see them, therefore they're not real.
So you're becoming immune.
So yeah, that's our new Secretary of Defense if Trump gets his way. He was he did serve in the infantry and combat. Apparently he was awarded a couple Bronze Stars, although the details of his military service aren't available that I could find through a little bit of research over the weekend, but I don't know if anyone can add anything in the comment section about that. But so there we've got our Beavis and Butthead candidates, Matt Gaetz and Pete Hegseth. But for one more political comedy clip is actually from today, this morning, America's Newsroom. John Roberts was in for Bill Hemmer with Dana Perino, and they had breaking news, the update on the popular vote. And I remember last week, sort of the premise of my show was that that Trump didn't get that many more votes. Harris actually lost a lot of votes. You can see Harris lost like 10 million votes and Trump only gained like 600,000. Well, here's the update with some new numbers where both sides have another couple million votes, but with a little Fox News bias thrown in for comedy over here.
Another history-making moment for Donald Trump. He is now the first Republican president to surpass 76 million popular votes. More than 153 million ballots were cast this election, with hundreds of thousands yet to be tallied. Trump sealed his victory with a 312 electoral vote victory over VP Harris's 226. In anybody's book, Dana, a crushing victory.
I'd say so.
Of course she'd say so, because Fox News is a propaganda outlet for the Republican Party, not an actual news organization, as I point out most weeks. And that was just some gratuitous Fox News bias thrown in. But you can see here that it's 73.7 million for Harris, 76.4 for Trump, compared to last week. That's about 2 million more for Harris and about 2 million more for Trump, like I said. But it still doesn't really, I even said last week that there would be more votes coming, but that the victory of Trump was more about Democrats getting less votes, not so much switching over to Trump. And I think that premise still holds true. You can let me know what you think in the comments section as we move past the political comedy clips over to the news summaries from the big five corporate outlets, from longest to shortest. The longest news summary this week was Fox News Sunday because they had two reporters. First, they had Shannon Bream doing the thing she does with headlines. Russia strikes Ukraine. I mean, I don't know, that could be a headline like most days, although it's actually gotten a lot worse lately. And then Biden meeting with Chinese President Xi at the APEC summit. I think I misspelled APEC in my notes here. And then Trump attends the big fight at Madison Square Garden over the weekend, too. So those are the headlines. And they have Bill Melugin with Trump. Then Kevin Corke, not with the president, but at the White House, even though the president's in Peru, which like literally seems to be phoning it in. Well, I guess not literally phoning it in, but pretty close to literally phoning it in, over in the longest and most biased news summary, of course, over here.
Hello from Fox News in Washington. Here's a quick look at your headlines. Russia launched massive drone and missile attacks on Ukraine overnight, targeting energy infrastructure. President Zelensky says Ukrainian forces shot down 140 air targets, but there was damage to power and water supplies. President Biden met one-on-one with Chinese President Xi Jinping Saturday at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in Peru, where China has just opened a massive seaport. President Xi says he's ready to work with the incoming Trump administration. Meanwhile, President Trump attended a UFC fight in Madison Square Garden last night, getting a rousing welcome from the crowd and joined by many of his brand new cabinet picks. House Speaker Mike Johnson was there. We'll speak to him in just a moment. And later, Senator Chris Coons joins us as well. But first, we turn to team coverage with Kevin Corke covering the final weeks of the Biden administration at the White House and Bill Melugin reporting on President-elect Trump in West Palm Beach. That's where we begin. Hello, Bill.
Hey, Shannon, good morning to you. Well, President-elect Trump and his transition team here in Palm Beach have been moving at rapid speed when it comes to filling out his future administration. They made more than a dozen picks this last week alone. Some of them have bipartisan support. Others, though, are raising some eyebrows. President-elect Trump taking a victory lap at UFC Fight Night at Madison Square Garden after a busy week building his second administration. His choices this past week include Marco Rubio for Secretary of State, Mike Walz for National Security Advisor, John Ratcliffe for CIA Director, Doug Burgum for Secretary of the Interior, and Kristi Noem for Homeland Security Secretary.
We have 4 years ahead of us that Donald Trump has tapped as the golden age of America, and he is putting effective, hardworking people into these positions.
But other choices have been more controversial, including Trump's selection for Health and Human Services Secretary.
Today, I nominated him for, I guess, if you like health and if you like people that live a long time, it's the most important position, RFK Jr.
We need disruption across the entire federal government. He'll be great at HHS to do that.
We're talking about the potential decimation of community health centers.
Trump is nominating Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. That led Democrat Senator Martin Heinrich to post, quote, People voted for cheaper eggs, not whatever the F this is. But Republican senators aren't sold yet either.
He's got a really steep hill to climb to get lots of votes, including mine.
Trump is also tapping Army veteran and former Fox News colleague Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense, and former Democratic presidential candidate, now Republican, Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence.
The question that we have to all ask, are these the best individuals available?
And Trump has said he wants recess appointments to potentially be on the table to push his picks through without Senate confirmation if necessary. Now, incoming GOP Senate Majority Leader John Thune tells Fox News that he's looking at every single option, including those controversial recess appointments. They will all be on the table to potentially give Trump the people he wants, whatever way it comes down to it. Shannon, we'll send it back to you.
All right, we will talk about that quite a bit in the show today. Bill Melugin reporting from West Palm Beach. Thank you, Bill. Now to senior national correspondent Kevin Corke at the White House.
Shannon, a little more than 2 months remaining in office for Mr. Biden, but that doesn't mean the lame duck period will be an inactive one for the Biden White House. Plenty on the agenda, as you know, just wrapping up a number of ambitious closing international global conferences from Peru to the Amazon rainforest to Brazil, where Mr. Biden addressed issues from climate change to global governance and the economy. In fact, at APEC in Peru, Mr. Biden presumably met for the last time with Chinese President Xi Jinping, whose country just opened a major seaport there and was front and center of the leader's photo, while shockingly Mr. Biden was consigned to the upper right-hand corner. Now, when he does return here to the White House, Mr. Biden's expected to roll up his sleeves and press ahead with his domestic agenda, which includes partnering with congressional lawmakers by allocating any remaining authorized resources for major climate initiatives here at home, as well as additional funding for support of the wars in Ukraine and Israel abroad. And speaking of congressional lawmakers, theirs is a fulsome to-do list as well, including expedited efforts to keep the government funded through the holidays, pick up any additional federal disaster aid, as well as pushing the farm bill over the finish line and getting the right money for the National Defense Authorization, and, of course, to confirm judges. That's especially important for Democrats who are concerned about the looming GOP control at both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue, which, of course, is all to say the president is eager to get back to work as memories of his legacy and his leadership, and, of course, the loss in November, make way for the final verdict on his time in office. Shannon.
All right, Kevin Corke reporting at the White House. Thank you, Kevin. Now to our interview with House Speaker Mike Johnson.
And I think that interview with Mike Johnson was pre-recorded, not live. And I have a clip from that has Speaker of the House Mike Johnson saying something pretty astounding about Matt Gaetz. But in terms of the Fox News bias in that news summary there, you saw in Kevin Corke's report from the White House for some reason about what Biden was doing in Brazil. Well, apparently, shockingly, big Biden scandal, he was in the upper right corner. He was relegated to the upper right corner. Shocking. That's a scandal. But in the previous report from Bill Melugin on the Trump campaign, first of all, they tried to stack the nominees. All the other news summaries, they lead with Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz, I believe, was the 7th nominee mentioned in that report. And as one of the nominees raising eyebrows, which I find especially amusing because Matt Gaetz has such weird, butthead eyebrows. That's why I decided he was Butthead, not Beavis, because he had the butthead eyebrows, even though Butthead is blonde, but neither one of them is blonde or whatever anyway. So he doesn't look exactly like Butthead, but he does have the butthead eyebrows anyway. But my point being that they also never said, other than raising eyebrows, what was controversial about Matt Gaetz. They didn't talk about the ethics committee report. They didn't talk about the underage girls. They didn't talk about the drug use. They didn't talk, there's so much to talk about. They didn't talk about what was controversial about Pete Hegseth. In fact, on none of the nominees they discussed, they mentioned that, are these the best? They showed Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader in the House, saying, are these the best people? But nothing about what was wrong with any of these people. Just, some controversy, some people pushing back, or I don't know. It was pretty bad. So that's the first of the news summaries. The second news summary, you're going to get a lot more details about what the problems are with some of these Trump nominees. This is NBC News Meet the Press. Kristen Welker talking about the cabinet, the most important qualification being loyalty to Trump. And then talking somewhat about Matt Gaetz, RFK Jr., and Pete Hegseth, and some of the things controversial about them over in this clip.
Good Sunday morning. President-elect Donald Trump is racing to assemble his cabinet, making it clear the most important qualification may be personal loyalty to him. Facing scrutiny, Trump's selection of now former Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz to be Attorney General. The House's bipartisan ethics investigation into Gaetz most recently zeroing in on alleged illegal drug use, sexual misconduct with a minor, accepting improper gifts, obstruction, and other allegations, but effectively ending this week after Gaetz resigned from Congress following Trump's announcement. Gaetz has denied wrongdoing. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are calling on the committee to release its report before a confirmation hearing.
The House Ethics report, would you want to see it before voting on it?
I don't want there to be any limitation at all on what the Senate can consider.
So you want to see it?
Absolutely.
Do you have any concerns about someone who's been accused of sex trafficking, possibly leading the Department of Justice?
I have concerns that he can't get across the finish line, and we're going to spend a lot of political capital.
You're not on the House Ethics Committee release that report?
Yes,
you do.
I do.
House Speaker Mike Johnson initially said, quote, the speaker is not involved with what happens in ethics. But one day later, and after a visit with President-elect Trump at Mar-a-Lago, Johnson reversed course, saying he would strongly discourage the report's release.
As a follower of rules and tradition, there's a reason for that. We would open up Pandora's box. I don't think that's a healthy thing for the institution.
Now, Gaetz has been a fierce critic of the department he has now been tapped to lead, a department that investigated him for sex trafficking but did not charge him.
I don't care if it takes every second of our time and every ounce of our energy. We either get this government back on our side or we defund and get rid of, abolish the FBI, CDC, ATF, DOJ, every last one of them if they do not come to heel.
Now, several GOP sources have told NBC News that more than half of Senate Republicans, including some in senior leadership positions, are privately saying they don't see a path for Gaetz to be confirmed and would not support him. Then there's the nomination of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to run the Department of Health and Human Services. Kennedy now says he's not against vaccines.
I'm not going to take away anybody's vaccines. I've never been anti-vaccine.
But Kennedy has frequently pushed false and misleading claims about vaccines, despite decades of medical studies that show vaccines are safe and effective. Kennedy even touted a false conspiracy theory that COVID was designed to target certain ethnicities.
COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians and black people. The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese.
Can you name any vaccines that you think are good?
I think some of the live virus vaccines are probably averting more problems than they're causing. There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective. I do believe that autism does come from vaccines. A mountain of scientific study links autism to early vaccination with certain vaccines.
According to the CDC, there's no evidence of any link between autism and vaccines, which protect children from contagious diseases like measles. Also under scrutiny, President-elect Trump's pick for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, a former Fox News host and decorated combat veteran. Police in Monterey, California say he was investigated in 2017 for an alleged sexual assault after a gathering at a hotel hosting an event for Republican women. He was not arrested and no charges were filed. Hegseth's attorney telling NBC News it didn't happen. The Trump transition team saying, quote, Hegseth has vigorously denied any and all accusations and no charges were filed. We look forward to his confirmation as United States Secretary of Defense. Hegseth also has argued that women should not serve in combat roles.
You don't like women in combat?
No.
Why not?
I love women service members who contribute amazingly because everything about men and women serving together makes the situation more complicated, and complication in combat means casualties are worse.
Now, the Pentagon opened combat roles to women in 2016, and women have succeeded and excelled in those roles since then. And joining me now is Republican Senator Markwayne Mullins of Oklahoma. Senator Mullins.
And I will have a clip of Senator Markwayne Mullins. Whenever I see him, I always want to say, "No, you stand your butt up." Well, he got in a fight at a hearing, or a verbal fight at a Senate hearing with the head of the Teamsters, Sean O'Brien, maybe? I can't remember. I think that's his name. And they was like, "You stand your butt up." "No, you stand your butt up." That every time I see him, I think that. I don't know. But anyway, that news summary gave you so much information you didn't get from Shannon Bream and Bill Melugin and Kevin Corke on Fox News Sunday. All that stuff about Pete Hegseth being investigated for sexual assault and not wanting women in combat, RFK Jr. and vaccines, Matt Gaetz, of course, and the ethics report and all the allegations against him that were not prosecuted but still have evidence that might make it so that he shouldn't be the Attorney General of the United States. And of course, none of that made it over into Fox News Sunday. My only criticism of some of these news summaries, well, all of them to some extent, I mean, you can only say so much, and it's really it's not so much a criticism, it's a warning of what we have to expect going back into the Trump era, is that, one of the things Trump does is flood the zone with crazy. And there are like so many crazy nominees and multiple crazy policies being announced that, like, by the time we get to like the 10th crazy thing, we forgot about Tulsi Gabbard being the director of national intelligence, even though some people say she's like a Russian asset. Or I saw like, who is it, Abigail Spanberger, who's now running for governor of Virginia, former intelligence officer, say, well, when asked about that, well, if she acts like she's being paid off by Russia, does it really matter what her motivation is if that's the way she acts? But anyway, and that like very little Tulsi Gabbard coverage here, although it'll come up briefly in a later clip. And but is that a problem with the news, or is it just a problem with, it's kind of one of those features of fascism where you just tire people out with all the lies and all the crazy? And that's one of the reasons, I think, for all these crazy nominations, the Beavis and Butthead of the Kakistocracy, as my title talks about. And you'll hear some more about that, some more especially about Matt Gaetz. And then CBS News Face the Nation news summary is the only one to mention this guy, Chris Wright, who's been nominated for Secretary of Energy. He's a climate denier and oil executive for Department of Energy. That's also not a good thing. Over in this clip.
Good morning and welcome to Face the Nation. There are just over 2 months before Donald Trump takes the oath of office again, but he is not wasting any time when it comes to naming candidates, mostly close allies and loyalists, for key administration roles. Republicans will be back in control of the White House, the House, and the Senate, and there's a conservative majority on the Supreme Court. There are new Republican leaders on Capitol Hill, and the question of whether those leaders will bow to Mr. Trump's wishes to do things his way, or whether they will stand by the office that they hold, is already being asked, even before the new Congress and returning president are sworn in. We begin this morning with an update on the Trump transition and our Caitlin Huey-Burns.
President-elect Donald Trump took some members of his transition team out to New York for a Saturday night at the UFC fights. But here in Washington, he's gearing up for a fight of his own over several controversial choices he's made for his cabinet. At the center, Florida Republican Matt Gaetz for Attorney General.
We either get this government back on our side or we defund and get rid of, abolish the FBI, CDC, ATF, DOJ, every last one of them, if they do not come to heel.
Gaetz is a fierce Trump ally who led the charge in ousting Kevin McCarthy from the speakership last year.
I'll give you the truth why I'm not speaker. It's because one person, a member of Congress, wanted me to stop an ethics complaint because he slept with a 17-year-old.
Gaetz resigned his seat in Congress this week, just before that House ethics report over alleged sexual misconduct and illicit drug use was set to be released. House Speaker Mike Johnson had said he would not interfere, but following an overnight trip to Mar-a-Lago, he changed course.
We should stick to the tradition and not release a report on a former member of the House because it would open a dangerous Pandora's box.
Gaetz was also under investigation by the very Justice Department he was tapped to lead over whether he had violated sex trafficking laws, but no federal charges were filed. Gaetz has denied all of the allegations. The selection shocked the Republican senators he will need to get confirmed.
There are many serious allegations pending against him.
He's got a really steep hill to climb to get lots of votes, including mine.
But Trump is undeterred and says he's motivated by a mandate.
The American people have just delivered really something very, very amazing. The biggest political victory in 129 years.
And some top allies on Capitol Hill say he's entitled to his choices.
Elections have consequences. He chose Matt Gaetz. Matt will come before the committee, and he will be asked hard questions, and we'll see how he does.
Trump also picked 3 of his defense attorneys to serve in top positions at the DOJ, and he's considering a shakeup of FBI leadership. Last night, Trump announced oil executive and climate change skeptic Chris Wright to serve as energy secretary. And we're keeping an eye on other top positions that he could pick this week, especially who he will choose to run the Treasury Department. Margaret.
Caitlin, busy week, and we're starting a new one. Thank you for your reporting this morning. And we are joined now by Republican Congressman French Hill. He joins us from his district in Little.
So that was also a pretty good news summary, and they did mention those 3 Trump defense attorneys who would be right under Matt Gaetz at the Department of Justice if Matt Gaetz actually becomes Attorney General. But also a lot more information about the scandals than you got from Fox News, just like from Meet the Press. And now I'm going to go to the ABC This Week with George Stephanopoulos news summary. Martha Raddatz also talking quite a bit about the Matt Gaetz nominate, well, just kind of a list of nominees after talking about how Trump is naming the people, showing the kind of people he wants to have around him in his second term over in this clip.
Good morning and welcome to This Week. Donald Trump is wasting no time naming the team he wants around him in a second term. In rapid-fire fashion, he announced a series of nominees this week to fill the White House and lead key cabinet departments. Many of them were right by Trump's side last night to attend a UFC fight at Madison Square Garden in New York. Among them, controversial picks like the world's richest man, Elon Musk, and entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, who will lead a new Department of Government Efficiency, an amorphous role aimed at slashing federal spending. While that move raised a lot of intrigue, other picks have raised eyebrows, to say the least, and some outright opposition, including Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence, despite her critics claiming she has sympathetic views towards Russia. Fox News personality Pete Hegseth to lead the Department of Defense, despite him having no experience running an organization near the scale of the U.S. military. Matt Gaetz as Attorney General, prompting him to step down from Congress, a move that ended an ethics probe into alleged illicit drug use and whether he paid for sex with a minor. and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to lead Health and Human Services, a massive role overseeing 13 major health agencies such as the CDC, NIH, and FDA by someone who has publicized disproven conspiracy theories about vaccines and COVID-19 treatments. That pick drew rebukes from top health officials, including former Biden White House COVID-19 response coordinator, Dr. Ashish Jha, who said, "I worry a lot about going backwards just at a time when we have made so much progress in American medicine." Dr. Paul Offit, a vaccine specialist at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, responding that the notion that a science denialist would head an agency that is built on science is a frightening prospect. And former acting CDC director, Dr. Richard Besser, saying point blank that I think it would be extremely dangerous to have RFK Jr. as the Secretary of Health and Human Services. And Dr. Besser joins me now.
So I don't know. In some ways, I think the ABC This Week with George Stephanopoulos news summary there was the best. It went through a whole list and pretty concisely mentioned what the biggest problems were. I don't know exactly why it focused more on RFK Jr. than any of the other ones. I'm not sure what the reason for that was, but I guess it's an okay choice. And now I'm going to finish up with the fifth and shortest news summary, CNN State of the Union, Jake Tapper talking about the shattering of norms, and especially Matt Gaetz and Pete Hegseth, the Beavis and Butthead of my thumbnail, over in this clip.
Hello, I'm Jake Tapper in Washington, where the State of our Union is watching President-elect Trump form a, shall we say, norm-shattering cabinet. He's back. This week, President-elect Trump showed Americans what his return to the White House will look like. He's giving every sign that his second term could be just as disruptive and very likely more impactful than his first. Trump made a triumphant return last night to the cheering crowds at Madison Square Garden, where he hosted a widely scrutinized closing campaign rally just a few weeks ago, while his reception in Washington this week was more mixed after he unveiled a slate of loyal and, in some cases, highly controversial cabinet picks, essentially daring Senate Republicans to oppose him. Trump is determined to see former Congressman Matt Gaetz, his embattled pick for Attorney General, be confirmed to that position despite bipartisan concerns about Gaetz. While we're learning his pick for Secretary of Defense, Fox News co-host Pete Hegseth paid a woman who accused him of sexual assault as part of a 2020 settlement agreement. Hegseth was not charged, and his lawyer says the encounter was consensual. But as Trump's nominees are in the spotlight behind the scenes, his allies and transition officials are laying the groundwork for many of the sweeping changes the president-elect promised in a second term. My first guest was part of President-elect Trump's eclectic squad at Madison Square Garden last night. There he is in the elevator. See him in the back there on the right? That's House Speaker Mike Johnson, who joins us now.
And you see the Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson interview on CNN is live, which I don't think it is on Fox News Sunday. And I'm going to juxtapose two clips there of their two Mike Johnson interviews, Fox News Sunday and CNN State of the Union. I thought that was also a good news summary from Jake Tapper there. And the first, I actually have several newsmaker clips for you. Was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? 7 newsmaker clips coming up. The first one is Representative Jim Himes. He was on CBS News Face the Nation, and because of his role on the Intelligence Committee, Margaret Brennan actually asked him a question about Tulsi Gabbard and her being unqualified. And he points out something that's really important to remember and really evident from the questioning you're going to see in the next clip from Shannon Bream on Fox News Sunday of Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. And that is, people are focusing on the ethics committee report about Matt Gaetz and some of his scandalous behavior, rather than the fact that he's totally unqualified to be the Attorney General. I mean, why? It's almost the scandal is distracting people from the incompetence, the lack of experience, lack of qualification. I think he calls it the cherry on the cupcake. In an answer not really responsive to the question, but worth listening to before we watch the rest of the clips over here.
There's so much news, and I'm getting through a fraction of it, frankly, here. I want to pick up on Tulsi Gabbard, which we who we just discussed in the previous segment. She was a Democratic colleague of yours for many, many years. You're the ranking member on the Intelligence Committee. She never served on that kind of committee. Do you think experience is necessary? Is she fit for the job?
Margaret, how far we have come that on a major news show, the question we're examining is experience necessary for one of the most powerful positions in the land? Of course it's necessary. You know, it's a little bit like our obsession right now with the Ethics Committee report on Matt Gaetz. You know, I mean, how is it that this is what we're focusing on? Matt Gaetz is by any standard completely unqualified to be the Attorney General, and yet we're sort of focused on this, you know, cherry on the cupcake of the ethics report. You know, it sort of reminds me of Al Capone. In 1931, Al Capone is convicted of a couple of counts of tax evasion. Now, he was a killer and a rum runner and a mafioso, and yet he was convicted of tax evasion. This is what the conversation we're having about Matt Gaetz. Yeah. You know, well, what about this ethics report? You know, and so, no, these people are manifestly unqualified, and you know, they're not prepared to run the very complicated organizations they've been asked to run.
Do you have any suggestion from your Republican colleagues in the Senate that either of those two individuals will not be confirmed for those positions?
Look, all I would observe is that, you know, history is a harsh judge, and I understand what happens to Republicans who stand up to Donald Trump. You know, talk to Adam Kinzinger or Liz Cheney or, you know, many of the Republicans who voted for his impeachment who are now gone. I understand that, but history is a hard judge, and a Republican senator who takes a vote to consent to the appointment of Matt Gaetz, a chaos agent, a performative social media, no respect for the rule of law individual, the Republican senator who votes to confirm Matt Gaetz or Robert Kennedy or Tulsi Gabbard will be remembered by history as somebody who completely gave up their responsibility to Donald Trump.
Well, the Speaker of the House called him one of the greatest minds in the United States or anywhere on another program this morning. On intelligence, though, because of your committee oversight,
I like that follow-up, which actually is a reference to the next clip I'm going to show you, though I think actually Speaker of the House Mike Johnson calls Matt Gaetz one of the brightest minds in Washington, D.C. or anywhere. Not greatest, but brightest. I'm pretty sure we'll see in the next clip. But I think Jim Himes is right that the people are focusing on the wrong things when they talk about the ethics report. Although the unethical behavior, especially for Attorney General, is especially relevant. And that's like one of two things that Shannon Bream doesn't follow up on. She does exactly what Jim Himes is talking about, where she just focuses on the ethics report, asking Speaker of the House Mike Johnson about Matt Gaetz, not even really the conduct that's in the report, more just like, should they release the report? She does like one good sort of cross-examination thing when Speaker Mike Johnson says he doesn't want to go against precedent, even though there are a couple precedents for releasing an ethics committee report after the person leaves Congress, but he doesn't want to go against precedent. She kind of turns it around on him and asks him about recess appointments. And so I kept the clip going through there, but she never follows up on him saying that Matt Gaetz is one of the brightest minds in D.C., which seems unbelievable. And you'll see in a couple times in Speaker Johnson's answer, he says he acts like a character reference for Matt Gaetz when he's talking about being a bright mind. He's saying, I've served with him for 8 or 9 years on the Judiciary Committee. I believe he says that twice in this clip. And still, Shannon Bream never, oh, you've known him for 8 or 9 years? Well, doesn't he seem totally sleazy? And is he showing videos around of how he's using Viagra and energy drinks to like go all night with these young girls? And I mean, no question about that, of course, over in this clip.
Hello from Fox News in Washington. Here's a quick...
sorry, wrong clip. Over in this clip.
The House Ethics Committee has been investigating one of President Trump's nominees, former Congressman now, Matt Gaetz, up for Attorney General. And they say that their Friday meeting was postponed, not canceled, but it doesn't look like that report that may have come from them is going to be released. Democrat Congressman Glenn Ivey sits on that ethics committee. Here's what he says about us ever seeing that report.
There's precedent for that. Can't really get into what's going on now, but the fact that someone has left the Congress does not mean that the report can't be released for additional information for that matter.
So you know our intrepid Chad Pergram, congressional correspondent, he says that there are at least 2 times a report has been released after a member left Congress. Why be against the transparency? And listen, this report may clear him. I mean, for somebody who's going to be the top federal law enforcement officer in this country.
Yeah, so I don't know anything about the contents of the report because the way the rules work, of course, the Speaker of the House can't put a thumb on the scale or be involved in an ethics committee report. What I do know is that the comments about this being there's a precedent for releasing reports is not exactly accurate. Yeah, there are 2 breaches of the tradition in the past under very extraordinary circumstances. I don't think this meets that criteria. Look, Matt Gaetz is a colleague of mine. We've been serving together for more than 8 years. He's one of the brightest minds in Washington or anywhere for that matter, and he knows everything about how the Department of Justice has been weaponized and misused, and he will be a reformer, and I think that's why the establishment in Washington is so shaken up about this pick. But with regard to the report, there's a very important reason for the tradition and the rule that we have almost always followed, and that is that we don't issue investigations and ethics reports on people who are not members of Congress. I'm afraid that that would open a Pandora's box because the jurisdiction of the Ethics Committee is limited to those who are serving in the institution. That's its very purpose, and I think this would be a breach of protocol that could be dangerous for us going forward in the future.
So his nomination will obviously have to go through the Senate the Senate Judiciary Committee. And that's going to be a long process. Our next guest coming up, Senator Chris Coons, is part of that committee. He says the report should be released, but he's not the only one. It's not just Democrats. Here's Republican Senator John Cornyn.
I think there should not be any limitation on the Senate Judiciary Committee's investigation, including whatever the House Ethics Committee has generated.
So you want to see it?
Absolutely.
He's open to issuing a subpoena to the House Ethics Committee. How do you see this playing out?
Well, look, I hope that the Ethics Committee will stick by our tradition and protocol for the reasons I just articulated. I think this would take us down a path where I don't know how we'd return if the House Ethics Committee and its resources, which are significant, substantial, could be used to investigate people who are not in the House, then where would that end? I mean, people could weaponize that function of government as well. The reason that Matt Gaetz is such an exciting pick to so many people is because he will go in and reform the Department of Justice. It desperately needs it. Look, he and I sat on the Judiciary Committee together for almost 7 years before I became Speaker of the House, and we heard the evidence. We saw the evidence of lawfare. We saw how the Department of Justice had been used for political purposes, how they targeted Catholics in some examples and parents at school boards and pro-life Americans. This is not what our system of justice was built to do, and Matt Gaetz will go in there and shake it up. And I think most of the American people understand that's an important function.
Well, to be fair, he was a member when the investigation was underway. We'll see now how the battle maybe between the Senate and the House sides play out as he proceeds in the confirmation process. In the meantime, President Trump has made it clear if his nominees get stuck, he wants the Senate to move ahead and possibly the House cooperating with this idea of recess appointments. Forbes says this, that lawmakers in both the House and Senate would have to agree for the Senate to adjourn for more than 10 days as the Constitution requires both chambers to agree in order to adjourn for more than 3 days. So there'd have to be House and Senate action. National Review says this about your role in that. It says the very idea that the Speaker of the House would collude with the president to undermine the Senate's constitutional role and effectively make the legislative branch a passive plaything of the executive should outrage any member of Congress. Would you take steps to put things into recess so those appointments could happen?
Listen, I believe in the principle of a new president being able to choose his team, and that used to not be a controversial notion. We're in a time of very divided government and a very partisan atmosphere in Washington. I wish it were not. I wish the Senate would simply do its job of advice and consent and allow the president to put the persons in his cabinet of his choosing. But if this thing bogs down, it would be a great detriment to the country, to the American people. Remember, they just delivered a mandate to the president, an overwhelming popular vote victory and of course, electoral college victory. And they have sent the message that America First policies should be the rule of the day. So the persons that the president is choosing will help with that agenda. They will take their leadership in these agencies and they will reform them as the people expect and demand. So we'll evaluate all that at the appropriate time and we'll make the appropriate decision. There may be a function for that, and we'll have to see how it plays out.
Okay. You've had a specialty as a constitutional lawyer. I knew you for years in that role before you proceeded into what you're doing now. Here is the Wall Street Journal editorial board on the constitutionality of these recess appointments. They say it's unconstitutional.
And their Shannon Bream transitions into talking about recess appointments and not about Matt Gaetz. And I pretty much pre-criticized that. I did give her one kudo there for using Speaker Johnson's claim to stick to tradition on not releasing the Ethics Committee report. Well, then why don't you stick to tradition and not do recess appointments? Because that's not the traditional way that nominees are confirmed. And so that was one good cross-examination question she did, but that was such a sanitized discussion of the whole thing. It was like Jim Himes said, focused on this ethics committee report when Matt Gaetz is totally unqualified to be attorney general. And what were the allegations in the ethics committee report? You couldn't like, she said, you know, this report could clear him. And I was like, clear him of what? You haven't even said what he's being accused of. It's like huge parts of the conversation that you saw on all the other news channels get redacted on Fox News is just the point I'm trying to make. And I also, as I said before, I showed the clip, I criticized it for Speaker Johnson saying, you know, he's worked with Matt Gaetz for, 7, 8, 9 years or whatever he said a couple times there. He gave a couple different numbers. And Shannon Bream never followed up, well, what about his character? And that's something that Jake Tapper does follow up or ask him about. He said, you know, you're a man of God, you're a man of family. What do you think? Don't Republicans believe in moral character for their leaders anymore? He doesn't really go into specifics and isn't even just talking about Matt Gaetz, but then he lets Speaker Johnson get away with kind of a rambling non-answer. But at least he asked the question that Shannon Bream didn't ask over here.
The question of whether or not Congressman Gaetz broke the law, and certainly there's a presumption of innocence for anyone. A lot of House Republicans, your colleagues, the people you lead, have real issues with Matt Gaetz as somebody to lead the U.S. Justice Department. I'm sure you've heard them, because I've heard them. I want you to take a listen to now Senator, former House member, Markwayne Mullins of Oklahoma, talking to our Manu Raju months ago about Matt Gaetz.
He was accused of sleeping with an underage girl. And there's a reason why no one in the conference came and defended him, because we had all seen the videos he was showing on the House floor that all of us had walked away of the girls that he had slept with. He'd brag about how he would crush ED medicine and chase it with an energy drink so he could go all night.
So just to take a step back, because you and I have known each other for a long time. You're a man of faith. You're a man of God. You're a man of family. With some of these nominees, Gaetz, Hegseth, RFK Jr., I wonder, does it matter anymore for Republicans to think of leaders as people who are moral in their personal lives? Is that still important to the Republican Party?
Sure. It's an important issue for anyone in leadership. This is what I'll say about the nominees that the president has put forward, is that they are persons who will shake up the status quo. And I think what the American people have believe and what they've delivered with the mandate in this election is a demand that we shake up the status quo. It's not working for the American people. So use the term in the opening about how these are disruptors. They are. I think that's by design. Any president has the right to name their own cabinet, to nominate persons that they think will fulfill their agenda. And the people that are on this list will do that. They will go into the agencies that they're being asked to lead, and they will reform them. These agencies need reform. And I think the vast majority of the American people understand that. You can't have status quo appointments in a moment like this. I'm really excited about the days ahead. I think the America First policies will deliver for the American people. I think we're going to have a warm embrace of all the new folks who came into the Republican Party in this election cycle, the demographic shifts that we saw that were historic, because we have a chance now to demonstrate for them that our policies, our conservative constitutional policies, common sense policies are best for them as individuals and families and communities and states and the nation as a whole. So exciting days ahead. It is a new day in America. These individuals will help deliver that, and I think the Senate needs to do its job and get them appointed so that the President Donald J. Trump and J.D. Vance can begin that administration and run with it on day one.
All right, Speaker Johnson, good to see you, sir. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks a lot, Jake.
So that's it. No follow-up. I mean, it was a good question, but maybe deserve follow-up since Speaker Johnson totally changed the topic by the end of his answer there. Like, he was asking about Senator Markwayne Mullins, who I'm going to have a clip of later, kind of talking about his previous dislike of Matt Gaetz. That's clip 14 coming up, but we're now talking about clip 11 here, where Jake Tapper did ask Mike Johnson about the tough question that Martha Raddatz did, but kind of let him get away with a rambling answer. Oh, look, it's Cheech the cat now. I have Cheech. Cheech is a lot more willing to be held here and be on camera. He actually climbed up the chair behind me, and I had to take him off. So you've seen both Chong and Cheech, and I do have a bonus. Cheech and Chong come home from the veterinarian clip at the end, as you can see down in the clip list. But I want to show one more clip from CNN State of the Union. I thought was kind of amusing. Representative Adam Schiff. I'm sorry, the cat is... Hold on. Representative Adam Schiff also talking to Jake Tapper. The cat is caught up in this wire here. Okay. Talking to Jake Tapper about what Speaker of the House Mike Johnson said in the previous clip, like the whole previous interview. He also kind of said that same stuff about the ethics report, and you'll see Adam Schiff refers to tying himself into knots, I think. And here's Adam Schiff's response, much shorter over here.
Heard what Speaker Johnson said about Matt Gaetz. What do you think?
I think he's not only unqualified, he is really disqualified. Are we really going to have an attorney general who there's credible allegations he was involved in child sex trafficking, potential illicit drug use, obstruction of investigation, who has no experience serving in the Justice Department, only being investigated by it? But Jake, I think the whole point with these nominees, several of them, is their unqualification, is their affirmative disqualification. That's Trump's point, because what he wants to do with these nominees is establish that the Congress of the United States will not stand up to him with anything. If they will confirm Matt Gaetz, they will do anything he wants. I mean, look how the Speaker had to tie himself in knots a couple days ago, saying the Speaker effectively should stay out of this. There are important reasons for that. And then getting involved in this, reversing himself, tying himself into a pretzel to placate Donald Trump. And if the Senate should decide to confirm without seeing this ethics report or to allow recess appointments, essentially the Senate is saying we're going to abdicate our responsibility for advice and consent. This is not why people voted for Donald Trump. They voted for him to reduce prices. I talked to people up and down the state of California. The economy was the central issue. They want someone who's going to address the cost of housing and the cost of childcare and the cost of food and gas. They didn't vote for this kind of retribution destruction tour that the president seems now engaged in.
And so, yeah, that's Adam Schiff there giving like the third of what I think are three main explanations for why Trump is doing his cabinet of Kakistocracy thing. I think I didn't really mention the middle one. Well, the first one is the whole thing, flood the zone thing I was talking about, where he does so many crazy things, nominates so many crazy people like you're thinking about Matt Gaetz, or you're not thinking about Tulsi Gabbard, or you're not thinking about Pete Hegseth maybe, or you might not be thinking about this guy Chris Wright as Secretary of Energy, or there are like so many crazy bad things you can't even focus on all of them. That's the flood the zone. Then some of these people are totally unqualified. That's also kind of the point, because they're not going there to run the agencies. They're kind of going there to destroy them, or to like be like the loyal watchdog for Trump, for like, or to make sure that nothing bad is happening, or that there's that everyone is acting loyally to Trump underneath. And then there's that third thing that Adam Schiff was talking about. It's like he's making them swallow it. He wants to make sure the Congress is loyal to him too. He's like, it's almost like a ritual humiliation. You have to vote for someone who's completely unqualified, this crazy person, just to show your loyalty to Trump. And this next clip is kind of a representation of that. This is a Republican Representative Tony Gonzales from Texas talking to Martha Raddatz. And Martha Raddatz asks him about the nomination of Matt Gaetz, also at the end about Pete Hegseth and not wanting women in combat, which is like an issue because, well, I mean, Representative Gonzales is a veteran, but that's like a real issue that people can debate or whatever. But the first thing where he's talking about Matt Gaetz shows Representative Gonzales calling Matt Gaetz a scumbag, literally calling him a scumbag. And now Tony Gonzales has to like totally twist himself up and say, well, I want scumbags to do good things for America. That's not literally what he says, but basically, yeah, everyone should, I hope everyone does good things for America, even scumbags like Matt Gaetz. So yeah, basically he does say he has to humiliate himself for Trump over in this clip.
No, President Trump announced he was nominating now former Congressman Matt Gaetz to be Attorney General. I want to play you what you had to say about him back in April.
I served 20 years in the military. It's my absolute honor to be in Congress, but I served with some real scumbags. Like Matt Gaetz, he paid minors to have sex with him at drug parties.
Matt Gaetz has denied those charges, but your reaction to his nomination?
There's not one person that I know of that hasn't met Matt Gaetz and has an opinion. So I wish him well. I hope he goes on and does good things for our country.
You would like to see him get that nomination?
I would like to see him go do good things for our country.
But wait a minute. What you just said is he's a scumbag. You want him to be confirmed?
I want him to do good things for our country. I want everyone to do good things for our country. And the division, the more we can be united under this unified government, I think the better off. His vote in Congress is certainly going to be missed. We have a razor-thin margin in the House. We have some real things to get done, like the spending package. The Farm Bill is very important. The National Defense Authorization Act. All those things need to happen.
And just quickly on Pete Hegseth, he also nominated to be head of the Pentagon. You are a veteran. He doesn't think women should be in combat.
Martha, no, I believe women. I've served with women in combat. They're some of the toughest warriors around. As you know, I'm the most senior enlisted service member to ever serve in Congress. I take that very serious. I served 5 years in Iraq and Afghanistan, and so I remember walking around with 25-cent AAFES pogs. And I think many of us have lost faith in this administration, especially after the 13 Americans in Afghanistan got killed and the Afghan women got sent back into the Stone Age. So nearly anyone will be in a better spot than what we currently have at Department of Defense.
Okay, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
So yeah, I pretty much pre-criticize that clip there, and I have another example, not quite as drastic, of that kind of ritual humiliation. Well, I mean, we'll see. That's the thing. One of those senators who may not vote for Matt Gaetz, who is a well-known critic of Matt Gaetz, who's in the Senate, is Senator Markwayne Mullins of Oklahoma. I mentioned this earlier. He's like the "you stand your butt up" guy, but he also has like a clip that you'll see. They edited it kind of strange. I don't know, because it's Sunday morning. They edited out the part where he talks about the Viagra and energy drinks to go all night part of the videos but he talks about the videos of the girls he slept with, and then something about Governor Christie, saying like something vulgar about Governor Christie Noem. And this is actually the longest newsmaker clip I'm showing you, because I thought Kristen Welker did a pretty good job. It's really difficult to like fact check the Republican alternative reality machine in real time, especially about like the 2020 election and all sorts of stuff like that. And Kristen Welker, I think, did a fairly reasonable job of like taking notes of all the false things he was saying and at least pushing back on some of them, not all of them. Not so much as good a job of like following up on her original questions and getting him to explain better, but at least there's some of that. And this is the final newsmaker clip before the bonus Cheech and Chong come home from the vet clip over here.
I want to start with former Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, who, of course, President-elect Trump, as we just said, announced this week was his pick for Attorney General. You have said you trust Mr. Trump's decision-making in naming Gaetz, but you have been critical of Gaetz as well. Here's a little bit of what you've had to say.
We had all seen the videos he was showing on the House floor that all of us had walked away of the girls that he had slept with.
And he walked up to me as Chrissy Noem, now Governor Chrissy Noem, and he said, man, she's a fine, and you can put the B word in place there. This is the type of individual Matt Gaetz is.
So, Senator, you clearly have questions about Matt Gaetz's character, but do you believe that Matt Gaetz is qualified to serve as Attorney General?
You know, there's no question that Matt Gaetz and I have had our differences, and that's no secret. Moving forward, I do respect President Trump's the right to appoint these individuals, but underneath Article 2, Section 2, Congress has to advise and consent, and Matt Gaetz is going to go through the same scrutiny as every other individual, and I'm going to give him a fair shot just like every individual, and at the end of the day, the Senate has to confirm him. I do think it's a very tough role. I've got a tough situation that I've got to set my personal opinions, and they're really not opinions. I got to set my personal situation with Matt to the side and look at the facts. If he's qualified, he's qualified. Be quite frank, I didn't even know he was an attorney until after he was appointed Attorney General, and I had to do my research on him. And I know that's crazy because I served with him, but I just never did the dig to find out actually his actual degree, what it was in.
Well, and speaking of digging into his background, the House Ethics Committee was about to release the findings of its investigation into allegations of misconduct by former Congressman Gaetz. Of course, he abruptly resigned before that could happen. A number of your colleagues, including members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, have said they would like to see that report. Should the House Ethics Committee release that report, Senator?
Absolutely, and I believe the Senate should have access to that. Now, should it be released to the public or not? That's I guess that will be part of the negotiations, but that should be definitely part of our decision making. Once again, I go back to it in Article 2, Section 2 in the Constitution. The Senate has to advise and consent these individuals, and in that process, we're going to give Matt Gaetz the same chances we'll give all President Trump's nominees. And by the way, I do believe that President Trump has the ability to pick some really, really good people. You can see why he's been successful in business, why he was successful in running his campaign, because he surrounds himself with the right people. So I have no doubt that President Trump believes that Matt Gaetz is the right person to do the right job. But at the same time, the background of Matt Gaetz does matter, and what the decisions that the Senate makes has to be within our boundaries of the constitutional authority that we have, and we will do our due diligence there. And I'll say this: Matt will be treated the same as every nominee out there, from myself and every other senator out there.
And you say background matters. I want to ask you about his views. Here's a little bit of what Matt Gaetz had to say last year about the very law enforcement agencies that he is poised to be tapped to oversee. Take a look.
We either get this government back on our side, or we defund and get rid of, abolish the FBI, CDC, ATF, DOJ, every last one of them, if they do not come to heel.
Senator, do you support getting rid of the FBI, the DOJ under any circumstances?
No, I actually agree with what Matt was saying there. As hard as that is for me to say that, I actually agree with him, because what he's saying is that he's got to come to the side of the American people and quit playing politics. The DOJ and the FBI has been politicized. There's no question about it. We've seen what they've done to President Trump. We've seen the attacks that they continue to go after him with. The DOJ is 100% weaponized. You saw the FBI and the fake Russia hoax. You saw the FBI shielding the Biden family and shielding the laptop from the American people during the election. If they don't want to come back and do their job, and their job is to keep America safe, to watch over the America's freedom through DOJ, making sure the American justice system is running smoothly and leaving politics out of it. But they haven't lately. And if they don't want to come back and get focused on what the American people's mandate was for them, then we do need to revamp the system and say, hey, maybe we've got it wrong. So I don't disagree with what Matt was saying there.
Well, and worth noting, of course, Hunter Biden has now been convicted on federal charges. The charges that were brought against President-elect Trump were brought by individual grand juries.
We had to go through a process to get there.
Let me ask you broadly, though, do you support the president-elect telling his attorney general to prosecute, to go after people he considers to be his political enemies?
The president didn't say that. That's being taken completely out of context. And President Trump hasn't been the one that weaponized the DOJ to go after his political enemies. President Trump did not do that when he was in office the first 4 years. He could have clearly done that against the Clintons if he wanted to. He didn't. Who did weaponize the DOJ was the Biden administration. We saw them continuously going after President Trump, treating him completely different. Just go think about the classified records that was kept at Mar-a-Lago versus the classified documents that was kept in the garage of Biden, and how the different reports read. It is no question they were treated different. Now, who has weaponized the politicals or the DOJ is the Democrats, and no one can deny what they did to President Trump with 4 years underneath Biden.
Senator, it's worth noting there's absolutely no evidence that President Biden had anything to do with the federal charges brought against President-elect Trump. But are you comfortable?
Garland was appointed by
with law enforcement agencies?
Or by President Biden, and there is no question that the White House was informed about what was happening.
But Senator, you have said we're too good of a country to have the Justice Department go after political opponents. Are you comfortable?
And it goes on from there. You can actually see the whole episode, a link I put down in the video description. But you can see Kristen Welker pushed back on some stuff, but there was a ton of stuff in there that he got away with saying that are like totally not true at the end there, where, saying that they were treated different, not differently, that the documents, the confidential secret documents cases where Biden cooperated when he found documents in his garage, and Trump actually kept moving them around and tried to erase the videotape and tried to get, lied about where they were and showed them to some people writing a book, the attack plans for the attacking Iran, and it was on audio recordings saying it. And that's why they were treated differently. No pushback from Kristen Welker on any of that. And there was, I'm trying to remember, there's like so many different, what was the other thing that he said? Well, whatever. Maybe that's why Kristen Welker couldn't push back, but maybe she got like 25% of the false things that he said there. But at least it's better than nothing, better than Fox News, right? Anyway, that is the final Newsmaker clip I'm going to show you. I do have that bonus Cheech and Chong the Kittens clip I promised. And before I get to that, I wanted to explain why I recently created some members-only content. I got this offer from YouTube to give me $200 for creating 2 members-only videos and 2 members-only posts through December 17th. And I did that like on Saturday for, I think it took me less than a couple hours, so $100 an hour, not bad, I guess, assuming YouTube keeps its word. And it's stuff that I was thinking of uploading anyway. If you want to become a member, I think you can do it for like $1 or $2. There's a join button at the bottom, right under the video. If you want, one is a kitten unboxing, kind of like what I'm about to show you. It's the kitten unboxing. I think I showed in one of the live streams from December 9th, 2023, when we first opened the box for our 2 new kittens, Cheech and Chong. And then another video is this clip I found of myself recently from 1988 asking an audience question on the Sally Jesse Raphael show, a show about abortion. And I was going to upload that anyway. And then there are a couple text posts. One is sort of a follow-up on that video I made about the Sacramento County Jail. And then one is a poll about what kind of videos should I start making as soon as I stop doing the live streams I've been doing every week for almost 12 years now. I'll stop that on Monday, January 20th, 2025. And anyway, so all that content will no longer be members only, I think on December 18th. But just, I don't know why YouTube wanted... I think I only have 6 members right now anyway, so they're only... I got 2 of my 6 members voted in the poll already, but anyway, I just wanted to explain why if you go on my YouTube channel, you'll find some members-only content. Normally I don't really even believe in members-only content, so anyway. And like I said, one of those is the original kitten unboxing video. This next final bonus Cheech and Chong, the kittens clip, is... when we opened the box, we had to take them for their like annual checkup since we got them about a year ago to the veterinarian. We open up the boxes and this is them coming out, and it shows a difference in their personality that I'll talk about briefly after the clip over here. So you see Chong, as soon as he realized he could get out, he's out of there. Cheech, he wasn't, he was willing to stick around. And I actually even made, here's a slow-mo of Chong's escape over here. Anyway, thanks for joining me. It's a double bonus Cheech and Chong the Kittens clip to finish up with. I hope you appreciate the time and effort I put into picking out all these clips, adding my political commentary and media criticism. I'll keep doing it for, I think it's 9 more episodes, and then I'll start, not every week, but most weeks I'll do some kind of weekly, probably edited voiceover video. I think in the poll I mentioned I might do a Sunday show cross-examination of the week. I might do a political comedy clip of the week, political tragedy clip of the week, or of course, Fox News bias clip of the week. Most likely, honestly, the answer will be all of the above, but I'll talk about that more during these next 9 episodes near the end here. For the people who watch all the way to the end, I guess, the most loyal viewers, and you can let me know what you think in the comment section. If you're a recorded show viewer, also let me know for the recorded show that publishes on Tuesdays. And anyway, till next Monday, or until I have some other reason to upload a video, I guess I will be seeing all of you around the internet.